Hi, welcome back to another episode of Just a Friendly Conversation. I'm your host, Jesse Chen. We're having a conversation about Blizzard games today, specifically two games, Overwatch and Hearthstone. I've yet to find a fellow StarCraft player. So while we look for that, I have Connor Duffy here. He's been a friend of mine since the early days of college. And we bonded over Overwatch and Hearthstone, which I used to play. He knows a lot about the current meta. I'm excited to talk to him. Connor, how's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
It's going great. So without further ado, let's get right started because there's a lot to talk about. This episode is kind of not at the right time, but it's, I think, if anything, being late to the party is actually good because we have time to really dissect and digest what has been currently happening to Overwatch. So let's talk about what the patches that are currently affecting affecting Overwatch right now in quick play, not competitive. So the rest of the game right now. And I think the two biggest ones are the endorsements that they added to the game, which I play a little bit of League, so I knew exactly where that came from. It's actually shocking how similar this was. I had another guy on the show who talked about League, Zach. I read him the endorsement patch notes, and he was like, wow, that's exactly like League. So they're trying to fix the toxic issues with that. I mean, that's not the only thing they're trying to do to help fix the toxic nature of Overwatch. They also added the looking for a group search option, which allows you to select your role before queuing up, so you're locked into that role, which is a brilliant idea. Connor, just wondering about your thoughts about it and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so very recently, the last patch, which was the 26th of June, and it's like mid-July when we're recording this now, so it's been in effect for a few weeks now. They added endorsements in the looking for group, or is commonly known like in the community, the LFG feature. And so far, they've honestly been incredible, and they've completely changed the way people are approaching Overwatch. So I'm going to start with endorsements. Endorsements, I've seen a huge change in the level of toxicity, and more importantly, the level of commitment that people have and how much teamwork people are putting forward. I'm seeing a lot more people going on mics more often and communicating with their team. And, you know, honestly, it's like an arbitrary thing to get these endorsements, and there is an endorsement level, which is basically decided by how much and how often you get endorsed. But despite the fact that it's fairly arbitrary, a lot of people are just feeling that little push to, like, go the extra mile and, like, go over the mics to say, like, hey, we have a flanker, or, like, I'm going to go this way, you guys want to follow me. And it's made such a huge difference. And then on top of that, with looking for group, it's taken that to the next step where you can kind of separate yourself from the people who are just going in, they want to go in for fun, queue up alone, and just do their own thing. People that are going to looking for group really are willing to put in the effort to have a organized team and work together, which is so huge in Overwatch. Overwatch is all about teamwork, making sure that everyone is doing their role and everyone is helping each other in order to make everything work. And you can see it when you look in like the pro leagues, when you see how teams coordinate, and all the way down to like now in bronze, people can, you know, join a team, talk about what comps they're going to be running before they go into the game, and then work together to actually win games. And it's been a huge difference. It's been really great.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I am not huge on Overwatch as much as I used to be, and I'm sure you know how much I used to play the game and how much time I put into it. Obviously, all of that was before competitive came out, but I still dabble in it a little bit. But it's nice to see, and one of the reasons I did leave the community a little bit, I still like to play for fun, is because of the level of toxicity I would experience in game, the amount of people that would just throw matches because they thought it was hilarious, the amount of people that would pretend like and act like they are pro players just because they're in gold, in the gold ranking, and feel the need to berate everybody because they're so much better than everybody. That would really ruin the game, and I feel bad, honestly, for a lot of people that have to take the game that seriously in order to ruin someone else's day, to think that what they've said has somehow changed everyone else's lives. And it's nice to have Overwatch step in and do this kind of thing. And it's interesting, and this is where I respect Blizzard, because a lot of people did not want Blizzard to... They said, like, Blizzard, why are you trying so hard to try to fix the toxicity? It's always going to be there. But I'm glad they didn't listen and at least did something to try it. it sort of works on League. It's certainly much less toxic than it used to be. In my numerous hours I've actually played, and granted they're not always against other people, when I was not doing well, people weren't disrespectful about it. They were just straight up saying, we're not doing well as a team, we should just surrender or whatnot, something like that. And it was not as bad as being told that someone has had intercourse with my mom millions of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's more constructive, and I could deal with that way more. So I understand the 3 endorsements for anyone that somehow doesn't know yet, who's paying attention to an Overwatch podcast at the moment, is shot caller, good teammate, and sportsmanship. And they mean exactly what they mean. And from what I understand, you only get a limited amount of votes per day, and you get a limited amount of votes per match that you're in. So you're only allowed to vote for 3 people for endorsements per match. You can actually also vote for the enemy team for sportsmanship if you felt that they deserved it. Or you felt that no one on your team deserved it.
Yeah, or that.
And it's awesome that they actually gave a reward for that. We were always talking about when we play games, we wish the voting system actually meant something. When someone was voted, 5 teammate votes, probably it usually means that they not only did well, but they also were pretty nice. No one really votes for a jerk on your team. So we were hoping that rewarded you somehow. So I'm glad to see that this actually rewards you. I know it did in League, and I know I'm bringing it up a lot, but it's just something that I saw happen in League of Legends a lot, that I finally it's nice to see it finally hit Overwatch. Moving on from that, let's talk about some of the PTR updates. There were a lot of updates in the normal one, but aside from, I guess we actually do need to talk about that. Symmetra with the completely new build. I've actually played against her already, and it's quite interesting. Tell me your experience with her so far and how you're liking her.
So I think that all the changes to Symmetra so far have been great. She's she went from a completely unusable hero to a great pick for a team. The only thing that I think is that she now has a very high skill ceiling, which is good, but people have not figured out how to play her, and a lot of people who play casually are trying to play her like they played old Symmetra, and it just does not work. So the old Symmetra, obviously, her primary fire would lock on to targets and would ramp up damage the longer it was locked on. The ramping damage is still the case. However, her beam now does not lock on, and it's significantly less powerful than her secondary fire, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people in the Overwatch community. But so you have to play her instead of a close range fighter. She's now a lot more long range. It's about sending in her sentry turrets that can lock onto walls, and using her alternate fire almost for splash damage, similar to Junkrat or Pharah.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. And her ult is something I experienced when I was actually just playing free for all, and it's pretty incredible. It's actually really cool, the whole design of it. I think the concept is pretty interesting, because that's not even a direction I would like when they were reworking her. That's not even something that I thought they were gonna do, and it's really cool that it works. And it's so cool that they're still incorporating her teleporters and her sentry turrets. Connor, I remember back in the day when Symmetra had to physically give people shields, and that was her ability, and her ult was only the teleporter, and 90% of the community just put the teleporter off the side of the map, so when people came and went through it, they would just fall off. It was sort of hilarious. It depended on my mood at the time. It's super nice that her turrets fire and our projectiles now. Wonder if Genji can reflect them.
Oh, I believe he can. It would make sense that if he could.
That's filthy. And it's just super cool what they're doing to her. I know, speaking of huge reworks too, they made Horizon Lunar Colony a map that I don't want to kill myself when I'm on. I only play Horizon Lunar Colony to go outside into the zero gravity zone where there's jars and jars of peanut butter flying around my face.
Well, of course.
Yeah, and apparently now it's actually playable.
Yeah, so they changed around a lot of stuff for it. They removed one of the door. Should I go over all the different changes that they've made to
Let's
it?
talk about the highlight. Let's just talk about the big
Okay, let's
highlights.
talk about the highlights. So they made it a little bit more difficult to get to the first point. And how they did that was they blocked off one of the bottom entrance on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have to go upstairs, or you have to go up the middle, or you have to go up the left. There's not like the 4 different entrances to the main area. And another highlight was they made it take longer to walk from the defensive spawn into point B.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, that's the biggest change, because it used to be impossible to attack point B because like you get one pick and then you have to wait like 10 seconds and then they come right back like immediately. Now you actually have to like get there closer to. It's similar to Temple of Anubis now, where it branches off in 2 directions when you leave, and it takes you like a second to actually get back onto the point.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better. It's funny about Horizon Lunar Colony. I remember when the map was first going to come out, I'm like, oh, that's sick. There's 0 gravity. This map's awesome. I didn't realize how passively I hated this map until they announced that they were reworking it. And I'm like, yeah, I realized that no good experience I've ever had was on Horizon Lunar Colony, even after I won. It just wasn't a very fun map and a well-polished map. So I'm glad they're actually taking the steps to fix it. So moving forward, and speaking of all these updates, things, let's take a step back and talk about the current competitive meta. Unfortunately, I never really I dabbled in one competitive game on accident, and it was like my friend. I was playing with a friend who was weirdly named Connor, and his friends all joined, and they're like, "Hey, Connor, let's do competitive." And Connor was saying like, "No, I got a friend here, doesn't play competitive." One of their friends didn't hear that, queued me in, thought I was their 6th friend.
Got it.
So, I'm a very good Tracer player, so what happened was I didn't want to pick Tracer because I was afraid that they're going to get mad and say, like, you don't know what you're doing and whatnot. I didn't know these people. So I just played Ana. At the time, she was in the meta. So I really heavily in the meta, so I played her, and that was my only experience in competitive, and I don't know if I'm going to touch it again. You, on the other hand, every time I open my computer, it says you're playing in competitive. So tell me about the current competitive meta.
Yeah, so up until very recently, the meta was very dive-oriented, and what that means is it was focused on high-mobility heroes that can get in and out of a situation fast, but it involved a lot of communication. So heroes like Winston, Diva, Genji, Tracer, who could jump on one character altogether, take them out in like a second, and then get back out. That was what the meta was. With the introduction of Brigitte, she was a tank who could stun. She's actually a support character, but she plays a lot more like a tank. And so if you try to dive a team that has a Brigitte on them, she goes in, shield bashes you, is able to take out one of your people, and now you're scrambling to get back, or else they're going to be able to kill you first. So instead, the meta switched over to a very shield-oriented meta, moving closer to the Death Ball, which has heroes like Reinhardt. Reinhardt is actually currently has the highest pick rate of any hero in Overwatch. If you go to, I'm not sure if you've heard of overbuff.com.
I have.
Yeah, so it's a statistics keeping site for Overwatch. Reinhardt is at roughly a 12% pick rate right now, right before Mercy, who has like an 11.9 pick rate. He also has like a 52% win rate. So it shows that, like, yeah, it is working. If you have a Reinhardt, you're a lot more likely to win.
A competent Reinhardt.
Yeah, a competent Reinhardt. I've actually switched. I used to play a lot of off-tank, like Diva, and I'm now moving towards main tanking as Reinhardt in competitive this season, just because a lot of people at lower levels don't play tanks well, and I'm trying to be the difference you want to see.
Yeah. The concept of tanks is confused in every single game. People think it's their main job is to do damage, like with every single role, and it's not. It's you're a tank because you can take the hits.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get into competitive again, Connor, and join you on that conquest.
Oh, I would love it. Reinhardt is obviously like a very much a utility character with his massive shield, and because of that, you can start bringing in other utility tanks like Zarya, who can jump back and forth between the shield and build up charge. I'm trying to think what else is big right now. Because of the fact that the death ball is large with these big tanks with their big shields, surprisingly, double sniper has become a common team composition. So running a Hanzo and a Widowmaker, because with Hanzo's recent rework, he's a lot stronger. And he can melt shields a lot easier. And it's about staying away from these tanks that do a lot of damage up close and trying to pick off their team before they can even get close to you.
Gotcha. And tell me about the other healers right now. So you said Mercy has a high pick rate. Who else is up there?
Yeah, so Mercy is currently the most picked support character. Among all supports, she is a third of all picks. So just to give you an idea of how important she is to any team comp. Zenyatta is also really common. Brigitte has a really high win rate. She's really good if you play her right. But she's played a lot less as a healer and usually takes up a DPS slot. So she's more of a damage dealer and a utility character than a healer. One thing, a lot of people, like you said, when you played competitive, Ana was really big in the meta. Ana has 100% fallen out of grace. She's sitting at like a 47% win rate, and is still one of the more picked healers. But she, in the current meta, can't really do a lot. She can't out-heal the damage that's coming in, the high damage, and she also doesn't have a lot of mobility, so when that death ball is moving towards you, it's a little difficult to get away.
Yeah. See, she used to be so great, and they nerfed her because she was a little too great. And unfortunately, it seems that they're just, in fact, made other healers more viable, which I guess was their goal, to inject a few more heroes into the competitive scene. Connor, I want to take us a little bit out of the core game and move into a topic I promised to talk about, which is PTR, just quickly grazing over some of the things that can be rumored to be put into the game. They're interesting, but, a lot of them might not be able to make it all the way. They're seeing how it works. I think them touching Sombra is pretty interesting, especially the stealth form she has. They're going to try to make it permanent?
Yeah, so they're trying to make, they're going to give Sombra her stealth ability will not run out like it does now, so you can run around invisibly behind the enemy team as long as you want until you decide to do any action that's not just standing there or moving. So the minute you start to hack something, you'll come back same as usual. And on top of that, they want her translocator to last forever as well, so she can always hop back. And they're going to give her a way to destroy her translocator when she wants, if she wants to drop a new one. And I think that this, while a buff, will not be as game-breaking as it sounds. Because when you hear that, it sounds like, oh my god, this is a character that you'll never see coming, and they're always going to be there. They're going to just be relaying all the information back to their team. But at the same time, with the way that Overwatch works, it's such a team-based game that when you have a Sombra on your team, it goes from a 6-man fight to a 5-man fight. When Sombra is behind enemy lines, if you get dived, she can't help you.
Yeah. And another thing I want to point out real quick before I get back to you is it's not like her gun is getting significantly better or anything like that. You know what I mean? She's not suddenly doing humongous amounts of AoE damage where she'll be able to get beyond the team and wipe out the entire team. So I like the buffs mainly because I think Sombra Hide and Go Seek is going to be much more fun. I like them because she's a very intriguing character, and someone that I always wanted to see a little bit more more in the game. And I'm glad they're trying to bounce around with things. And sometimes, if people are going to consider this overpowered and crazy, sometimes you do need to do that to a character to really start to balance them out. Connor, I want to move forward into talking about the obvious thing that's been shoved in our faces every time we launch the Blizzard launcher, which is the Wrecking Ball Hamster GeForce thing. The new character, you had a chance to play him.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
So, Hammond, as I'm sure he'll be known, for those of you that don't know, he is known in-game as Wrecking Ball, but lore-wise, his actual name is Hammond, and I think that he'll just be known as Hammond because it's such a better name than Wrecking Ball. I'm sorry, Blizzard, but Hammond's better.
You're not a support of Blizzard's WWE character names?
Unfortunately not. But I am really supportive of this character because, oh my god, he is the most fun hero that I think that they have ever released. He is such a good time swinging around with him. I don't think he's I think he'll come into the game a little bit overpowered, but that's kind of been common. I think every hero has come into Overwatch a little overpowered. That's been an added character, and then they'll nerf him as they go and figure out where he belongs in the game. Just like an overview of Hammond / Wrecking Ball. So he has a grappling hook that allows him to latch onto walls, ceilings, floors, and build up momentum and just go flying. And it's insane some of the rollouts that he's capable of. He can go, do you know the end of King's Row?
I do.
Yeah, there's that area where there's a pit that you can fall into.
Yeah.
So he can go underneath that, latch onto the ceiling, and swing back up on the other side.
That's crazy. That's also hilarious. He's a hamster.
He's a hamster in this massive metal hamster ball that can slam into your entire team, does area of effect damage, and then pops out of the ball. He doesn't leave the ball, but his head pops up. And he is also a hit scan character, which is really interesting. And he can do a lot of focused damage. One of his abilities also is it allows him to, it's called Adaptive Shield, I believe, where you gain 100 shield for every single enemy that is nearby. And I think that that's going to be really meta breaking. We recently talked about how the current meta is all Reinhardt, Death Ball, everyone sticking together and moving together. If Hammond's able to run in there, drop down on all of you doing area of effect, and then gain 600 shield immediately, that's gonna just that can easily give him enough time to melt one or two of your supports and get out of there. And also, if the enemy team is also reacting with that, I think it's gonna go from the current Death Ball meta back to dive. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a triple tank meta as well, where it was Winston, Diva, and Hammond. I think that's very viable, and I guess we'll just have to see where it goes. But Wrecking Ball is definitely going to be a lot of fun when he comes out. I'm very excited, and I'm really excited to see where the game's going to go once he's introduced into competitive play.
I'm just picturing this executive at Blizzard looking at his hamster rolling around and be like, yeah, I got an idea for a new Overwatch character. It's pretty incredible, but we'll get a lot more news about the hamster controlling the Droideka later on as time goes on. You mentioned Death Balls and Wrecking Balls and all that. It's so funny. There's almost a Death Ball in every single Blizzard game out there right now. I can tell you all about the StarCraft Death Ball some other time. But moving on to another Blizzard game, because this is just a friendly this isn't just a friendly conversation about Overwatch. This is just a friendly conversation about Blizzard. The other game that you and I can play, a game that I was very into in high school and yelled at by a lot of my friends because they are so excited that I joined them, only for me to not be interested in building the best deck ever. I love dragons, so I built a dragon priest deck, and they hated me for it. Let's talk about the current meta, because every time I open Hearthstone, this humongous picture is blasting me in the face. Actually, no matter what Blizzard game I'm trying to launch, it's all about that new Hearthstone event that's going on. Connor, talk to
Yeah,
me,
the
man.
Boomsday Project. Is that? Yeah.
You gotta translate a lot of this for me. What are your first impressions of it so far?
Yeah. So it's been kind of a joke in the Hearthstone community over the last few expansions. Each expansion being like more or less the set of cards that's released every few months. But it's been a joke that each expansion recently has had one useless mech. Mech being one of the card tribes. So like there are elementals that work together, beasts that work together, and mechs. Mechs used to be a really big deal in the Hearthstone meta, probably closer to when you were playing, and have since seen very little use because there's not a lot of great mech synergy. And I think that this was the Hearthstone team's opportunity to bring them back in a really big way. So they introduced this new keyword called magnetic.
Yep.
And what that does is if you have a mech with magnetic and you play another mech with magnetic, then they will combine everything into one card. So let's say you have, here we go, a new card, upgradable Framebot. It's a 2-cost 1/5 mech. So you drop your 2-cost card, it's a 1/5. Next turn, you play Spider Bomb, which is a 3-cost 2/2 with magnetic and a Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. So those just get added together. You now have a 3 attack, 7 health with Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion.
Okay. That's certainly intriguing. I didn't realize that Hearthstone was going in the direction of allowing me to finally achieve my dream in card games of making the Megazord from Power Rangers. But
oh yeah,
I'm extremely excited. I find it hilarious that they made a card called Annoyo Module.
Oh, that's actually a throwback to. Do you remember the card Annoyatron?
Yeah, it's your Blizzard. It's rightfully your Blizzard avatar. No, I'm just kidding. At one point, I'm sure it was, right?
It was actually Annoyatron for a while. Yeah.
I thought so. I remember seeing it. That's what I saw. I think that's hilarious. This magnetic ability is awesome, and this is why I love Hearthstone. I know the current director actually had changed.
Ben Brode, the former director, just left. I'm not sure who the new one is, but
this is a great direction to go in, though.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting. Like the thing with Hearthstone is it's impossible to predict the way that certain things are going to go. Like cards that are currently meta defining were thought to be garbage, like throwaway cards when the expansions first came out. So I think they're obviously trying to create a new deck type with magnetic and all these mechs that are coming in, and I'm really interested to see how this goes and if it'll actually be a viable deck type.
I agree. Do you see this affecting the current meta as much in the sense of Q block is really big right now? Using Frostlich King, a lot of that deck is actually pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you see this affecting that and anyhow, or do you think that this is actually just going to add a new element to it that for people to try out?
So the great thing about Hearthstone is a lot of it is, one, the dev team, and two, the community working to pretty much break the meta of whatever's happening. So you're not too far off when you say like Q block's in the meta, but that was, if you said that like less than a month ago, you'd be right. And within the last like 2 weeks, I have not seen a single Q block deck. Because just other decks, well, one, decks start being built to specifically counter that because it's in the meta, and two, other decks will put things in to make sure that, I guess I'm saying the same thing twice, aren't I? Yeah,
just
decks are being built to counter it.
Yeah, to counter it.
And new decks are discovered that are just really powerful. Like, there's this new deck type. It's called Heal Zoo, I believe. It's a new Warlock deck, and it's all about having a minion-based deck that is focused on healing your hero and using healing synergy. So cards like Light Warden, who's a 1-cost 1/2, he gains 2 attack whenever a character is healed. That card is in the classic set. I have never seen it used in Hearthstone, and now it's part of a legend, like a legend rank deck.
It's kind of like Hearthstone's like kind of like being an archaeologist. You're just constantly digging through things until you suddenly find something that's incredibly valuable. Connor, that's all the time we have for today. I had a lot of fun. We got to keep doing this some time. Maybe focus a lot more on Hearthstone. Thank you so much for talking to me and teaching me about a lot of this stuff.
Of course, thanks for having me.
No problem. If you guys enjoyed that video, definitely hit that subscribe and like button. Would love to have your support. If you didn't like the video, you can go ahead and hit that dislike button. See if I care. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope to speak to you guys again soon.